Hello. In this video, we are looking at Bhagavad Gita Chapter 2, verse 12. Natveva hanja tunasan natvanne me janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayamattah param. I'll read it again now with the text up. Screen 3. Here we are. Natveva hanja tunasan natvanne me janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayamattah param. This verse begins with a very strong, emphatic and contrasting negative. That is na to eva. So without these particles, the tu and the eva, which I'll explain in detail in a moment, the sentence reads, or the essential part of this sentence reads, na aham na asam, literally, not I, not was. Na, see the na, aham, na asam. I'll explain the other bits in a moment. So asam, from the root as, to be, makes the imperfect regularly with the prefixed ah for the imperfect, and add on the for first person singular. So as becomes asam, meaning I was. And you'll find that, I think I've given a note where it's explained. Yes, in Macdonnell, paragraphs 108 and 131, you'll find all that explained. So na asam, by Santi nasam, means I was not. Here we've got a double negative. We've got the na there and the na there. So, and the aham means I. Strictly speaking, you don't need to put in aham to indicate that this verb refers to me, because this is in the first singular. Anyway, the tells you it is I was. But it's put in here because there's a contrast. Aham natwam, not I, not you. Na ime or neme janatipa, nor these other lords of men. So na aham na asam, not I, not was, a double negative, means it is not the case that I was not. And this particle jatu, initially I'd misinterpreted it, my mistake, sorry, in my old version I put verily, generally emphatic. In fact, it's an emphatic of time specifically. It means at any time, and in a negative sentence, ever. You see this particle, which is identical in Pali, in the last verse of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, Nahi Jatu Gampasayam Punaretiti, meaning he will not, or the person who performs these practices and has this mindset will not ever come back to a resting place in a womb. In other words, he will never take human rebirth. Here, jatu is used in Sanskrit, in Bhagavad Gita, in exactly the same way as it's used in the final verse of the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So at any time. So what he's saying is, there never was a time when I was not. So in other words, I've always existed. So na aham jatu, not I at any time, na asam, was not. So a double negative, there never was a time when I did not exist. The force of the tu and the tu eva becomes, of course, tueva by Sandhi. It makes a strong contrast with what was being said in the previous verse. Remember from the previous verse, where he was saying, the wise do not grieve for the living or the dead. Gatasun agatasuncha nanusho-chanti pandita. The pandita na anusho-chanti, do not grieve for, do not grieve after. The gatasun, those whose breath is gone, and agatasum, those whose breath is not gone, namely the dead and the living. So the wise do not grieve either for the dead or the living. Now you might ask why. The answer is given at the beginning of 212. And the tueva is as if he's saying, because, making a strong contrast, because the true fact of the matter is that. In other words, he's correcting a misapprehension that Arjuna, natu eva, because the true fact of the matter is that there never was a time when I did not exist. Natvam, not thou, meaning not you either. The same applies to you. Na ime janadipaha, which na ime, of course, becomes neme, not these janadipaha, these rulers of men, lords of men. So, because the truth, so we translate into idiomatic English by saying the true fact of the matter is that there never was a time when I did not exist, and the same applies to you, and the same applies to these lords of men. Now, the same point is made for the future. Nachaiva, that's nachaiva, nachaiva, nor is it the fact that nabhavishyama, so the root bhu, to be, the future, he, she, it will be, bhavishyati, we will be, bhavishyamaha. So na bhavishyamaha, we will not be. Again, as in the first line, there's a double negative, nachaiva na bhavishyama, nor indeed will we not be. In other words, he's saying it is not the case that we will not exist in the future. So bhavishyamaha, we will be, bhavishyama, we will not be, we will not exist. Who will not exist? Well, we're already told by the ending of the verb, the amaha ending, that it's we, but he's contrasting it, sarvevayam, not just we, but all of us. In other words, it applies to everybody. Nachayvana bhavishyama sarvevayam. Nor is it the case that we will not be, all of us. Atah param. Atah means, originally it was a Vedic ablative, meaning from this. And then it acquired a temporal sense, meaning from now on. And param means beyond or further. It also means other. It's cognate with the English word far. So atah param is a stock phrase meaning from here and further, meaning from now on, and from now generally into the future. Note this is a sarva, meaning in the singular. It can be used in the singular and the plural. All, just as in English we can use all in singular and plural. Here it's the plural, of course. Remember, it is a pronominal adjective, which means it declines like a pronoun. So the nominative masculine plural is not sarvaha, but sarve. That's why it's sarvevayam. And it's the same in Pali, by the way. All Buddhas is sabbe buddha. The feminine, by the way, would be sarvaha, so if you say sabba buddha in Pali, you're referring specifically to all female Buddhas, but all males it's sarve. Sarve vayam, all of us, atah param, from here into the future. So I'll read it through again. Natve vahanja tunasan natvanne me janadipaha nachayvana bhavishyam sarve vayamattaha param. Now I just want to correct him. Oh, I've just lost the text boxes. I just want to correct an error that I made earlier. We've got the anuswara here, natwanneme, which is, that's correct. It's this tuam here. That's the dot up there, tuam, and it's correctly written as anuswara here. But in this analysis box here, I should have taken out the sandhi, so that ought to be with, remember, in running text, it would be written with the anuswara, but in the analyzed text as a straight M, which is what you see in these boxes up here. Remember this first box, which I've highlighted, is how it's actually correctly written in the Devanagari. So we've got a word ending in an M, which without sandhi is twam, you singular, thou. That's the nominative twam. But with the following consonant, it becomes the anuswara. That's why it's written with a dot there. So in these two boxes, it's written correctly with the anuswara, but here I've taken out the sandhi and it's reverted back to how the word appears in its non-sandhi form, just a word written in isolation, where you write it with a full consonantal M, as here. Note when I was pronouncing these, you see, I would have done the same there, wouldn't I? Yeah. When you are pronouncing it as a running text, aham on its own with an M at the end. For the Pali students among you, note that in Sanskrit it would be pronounced as aham on its own, not ahang, which you would tend to do in Pali, particularly in the pronunciations of say, Thailand and Sri Lanka. When this anuswara precedes a j sound, it takes on the same sound. It's articulated at the same point. So it's pronounced ahanjatu, not ahamjatu, ahanjatu. And similarly here, we've got twam followed by an sound. So it comes out pronounced as a double N, natwaneme. So written as anuswara, but remember it takes on it's colored by the following sound, ahanjatu twaneme. So I'll read this through once more. Natve vahanjatu nasan natwaneme janatipaha nachaiva na bhavishyam sarve vayamattah param. And that's it on this video.